Hey guys, welcome back. It's your brother in Christ, Weston. Thanks for joining me today. So today's article comes out of End Times Headlines. Let's get into it. Hey, so I think I may just do two articles, maybe one article. We'll see. Bank of America warns that U.S. economy will grind to a halt in the second half of 2023. I think you mean 2022, but we'll see. It says here, Bank of America has sounded the alarm on the U.S. economy, predicting growth will stall next year and that the likelihood of a recession will surge. In the note published on Friday, 2 days after the Fed Reserve hiked interest rates by 75 basis points, analysis said the Fed was too slow to aggressively tackle inflation, which is running a 40-year high and abruptly scrambling to get on top of it. Now that the bank sells GDP growth slowing nearly to zero by the second half of 2023, because the influence of the tighter financial conditions, while the risk of recession this year is low, Bank of America sees a 40% probability starting next year. 2024 isn't looking much better, as analysts see only a modest rebound by then. Our worst fears around the Fed have been confirmed. They fell well behind the curve and are now playing a dangerous game of catch-up. The note said, despite the Fed's more hawkish stance, I need to look at that, like hawkish, bearish, these words. I don't know what they mean. I hear them all the time. The bank doesn't see inflation cooling enough to get it down to the central bank's 2% target. Instead, it will persist around 3%, it said. While the supply problems and demands for goods will ease, inflation expectations are anchoring at higher levels and wage pressures will likely be tough to reverse. But the Fed is perhaps finally catching up to properly attack inflation, Bank of America said, and on Wednesday's rate hike was a strong step in the right direction. Still, analysts aren't confident the Fed will know what to do after it completes its tightening cycle. While the policymakers' forecasts suggest a rate cut in 2024, Bank of America doesn't think so. Our baseline forecast assumes the Fed will be like a deer in the headlights, unsure over whether to react to a very weak growth or still high inflation. Even with its gloomy outlook, the bank said it's vulnerable to a downside risk, noting external shocks from the Ukraine war, energy prices, and sanctions extending against Russian supporters like China, because that's the reason why this is happening. The main domestic risk to the forecast is if the Fed commits to lowering inflation to its 2% target, because getting there would require policy that's so tight it would trigger a recession. So, if you guys don't know what a recession is, it is when spending goes down. So let me read you, I'll read you a definition, right? Recession, says here, put it over here so you guys can see it, or so I can stay in the same area as reading this. In economics, a recession is a business cycle contraction when there is a general decline in economic activity. Recessions generally occur when there is a widespread drop in spending. This may be triggered by various events, such as financial crisis, external trade shock, or adverse supply shock, or the bursting of an economic bubble, or a large-scale anthropogenic or natural disaster. So we see that because inflation is so high, they're not gonna be able to spend as much because they're gonna have to hold on to their money. And then they're not gonna be able to do all the things they would like to do, whether it's just all these services, X, Y, and Z, you name it, right? And so if that's the case, then if the recession is bound to happen because inflation is so high that people are not gonna be able to buy and spend like they normally do, because they have to make ends meet, they have to pay the bills, they have to put food on the table. That's all that matters, food and water. So if that's the case, and that's what's coming to happen, let's just read another article just to kind of summarize this up. So there'll be two articles in here. So let's tie that in. JP Morgan lays off hundreds. Target CEO warns we are in an environment many of us haven't seen before. Straight out of End Times Headlines, they're all over it right now. JP Morgan Chase & Co. is laying off hundreds of employees in its home lending businesses and reassigning hundreds more this week. Bloomberg News reported Wednesday, citing people familiar with this matter. More than 1,000 employees will be affected, the report said, and about half of them will be removed to different divisions with the bank. The spokesperson for the bank did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. Last week, real estate brokers Compass Inc. and Redfin Corp said that they would cut jobs as home buying demand moderates with rising mortgage rates and surging inflation. U.S. existing home sales tumbled to a 2-year low in May as median house prices jumped to a record high, topping the 400,000 mark for the first time. Wow. Meanwhile, Target CEO Brian Cornell cited inflation and historic highs with inventory levels, meaning they can't get it out because it's too high. It's too much money it costs too much. And people aren't going to buy these luxury items anymore. Are going to buy some of these things that are not even luxury. They're hard to find items because inflation is so high, and there are supply chain issues, and there are spending issues, and then the dollar's losing its value, and then it's, goodness gracious, it's like, what else is giving? Then you have the demand of a house and surging inflation on that, and then taxes are going up, so then you have to have a place to live. I mean, it just, it's one thing after another. You just have something going on and on and on. Let's continue. It says here, He says, as he pulled back the curtain on major decisions to aggressively mark down inventory amid an environment many of us haven't seen before, in remarks on Tuesday, I recognized a few weeks of looking at our own stores, analyzing our business, looking at our competition, and hearing from our team that we had to address the problem up front. Cornell explained at an event held at the Economic Club of New York. As opposed to letting it linger quarter after quarter for 3 or 4 quarters, we made the tough decision based on what we were seeing in the industry and back from our guests, our team. Our best thing to do was let's deal with this up front and deliver on time. Earlier this month, the retailer said that it's aiming to cut inventory by offering discounts and canceling orders and taking a harder look at expenses in light of actions. Target cuts its second quarter operating margin outlook. We are in an environment many of us haven't never seen before. We are all seeing it happening with fuel prices across the country, right? So then you have higher fuel prices, which can't get the product to stores because diesel is so high. So you have an inflation, you have a surge on that or a shortage on that. And then as you know, people are spending $150, $200, maybe even $300 on diesel trucks just to get to place to place to place. So then it's like, I can't do all this because it's hurting me. I'm not making any profit. It's hurting me every time I drive. So now I gotta do something else. I can't drive these vehicles anymore, man, because I can't feed myself. I can't pay my bills. I can't feed my family. But then you also have food shortages. So then if you have food shortages, then you're not able to go get the food, but then take it to the store. Then the store is able to sell it and then make a profit on it. And then, you know, the profit, even back to the farmer, because then you have fertilizer shortages, which all leads to this total collapse of this bubble. It's a deck of cards, right? A house of cards where I just put every service on a needle and it's just doing this. And the moment it loses its balance like that, somebody just goes, right? It's done. It's done. It's going to be so bad. That's why a recession is coming. It is most certainly coming. We're all seeing the fuel prices across the country. As Cornell said, in the second largest net importer of the U.S., we obviously have a significant supply chain, which are planning for freight and transportation costs to grow by $1 billion. Holy crap. That number doubled almost overnight. He continued to also talk about the fact that inventories were way up because people are buying. I left New York and spent time in different parts of the country in our stores and competition, looking at syndicated data and recognized that the U.S. retail overall, we're looking at historic highs with inventory levels. So guys, that's happening. That's coming. And I expect to see even more if it hasn't hit us yet. There's another article that I'm going to go over. It's a longer one. Let me see if I can find it. It says, what is your plan to make it through the worst global food crisis in any of our lifetimes? I will go over this, and it shows a list of things, like 50 things that this person put out on Zero Hedge and on End Times Headlines about things you should probably invest in now. Get them now while you can, because whenever you start seeing the shelves like empty or just not showing in the US, it's gonna fast forward like times 10, times 100, and it's going to be like every store's out, and it's going to be too late. But the Lord provides for the believer. I'm expecting it, but be wise and look at the signs that are ahead of us. Don't mock, don't scoff. Just do what you can to provide for yourself. I want to make sure you eat. I want to make sure you have clothes. I want to make sure you have blankets. I want to make sure you have a roof over your head, or a car that works, or gas in the car, or something that you can actually stay warm in and stay cool in, an AC, and you can eat. You can feed your family, you can feed yourself, and you can make it through at least that day with not only that, but most importantly, the Lord's provision. Stay in prayer, stay prayed up, seek, ask, knock, ask for the manna from heaven at this point, right? Supernatural multiplication of items, right? In the body of Christ. That's what I'm putting my hope in, my hope in, my prayer in, my all in all my eggs in the basket are the Lord's going to provide if I run out regardless. So anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what y'all think, and I'll see you in the next one.